Welcome back to another week of, bashing on Cramer a little bit, but we do have a couple attaboys to give, I guess. Thanks for joining us again. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can stay in tune with the stuff we're putting out. We're doing this every week, and we're thinking of doing it live pretty soon, so we could do some chatting and calling in type of stuff. So if you had something that you questioned Kramer on and didn't get the answer you like, you can hit us up and we'll give you a better answer.
Or you're smart enough not to question Kramer on anything and you want to ask us what we think.
That works too. We love
Yeah.
thinking, and we love talking about what we think. So, kicking right off, man. Moderna was another top ticker. Yeesh. How about that? Was he talking about that the other night, or I didn't even watch the show.
A couple months back near the lows, a caller called in and he said, sell, sell, sell. 2 nights ago, so what is it? It's so Tuesday night, a caller called in about Moderna and he said, buy, buy, buy. And of course, that's right as it got rejected at the 200-day moving average on the upside. And
Yeah,
it's typical Kramer. If you ask him about something that's been going down, he's going to tell you to sell it. And then once it's had a massive rally, he's going to tell you to buy it, which is the exact reason why you want to do the opposite of what he tells you to do.
that's exactly why we're here.
That's it in a nutshell. He's worse than the consensus, and the consensus is going to try to, buy high and sell low.
I mean, this is almost back to the support. I remember talking about this not too long ago. We were looking at this measured move setup. That was the dope on the chart, and I just added the third block for that 2-for-1 right back to in between. And think it'll hold there? Maybe. I mean, he did top ticket. It did come back to support. Maybe around $96. We could see this hold a little bit. Kind of get the idea that since it's already cracked that 50 period on the 2 hour, I'm a little worried that it might go a little lower and split about half of this trend. So that's a tough call. Certainly something I'll pay attention to though, because it is a great trading stock, man. This chart just has lots of gems to offer. I'm pretty sure that Kramer's going to be talking about this in the near future again, and probably saying sell, sell, sell when we're ready to buy, buy, buy. So,
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the 50-day at 87.54. That's pretty close to a gap fill. There's some candles up there. I mean, to me, that's the logical level. And if you get an undercut and rally at the 50-day, maybe that's when you buy, and that's probably when he'd tell you to sell. So
it
I think
seems
that's
about
about right.
typical. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can absolutely inverse Kramer on this one. No pun intended. Yeah, he was talking about some other stuff in the lightning round, and one that he was kind of, I guess he missed the boat on. All he could say was, "We missed it," and
Yeah.
I remember talking about this a little while back. WDFC. I I seem to remember we spoke about this a little over a month ago, and saw that
Yeah,
one for
I
one
think
setup,
we did.
and I guess that goes to play right into our really high accuracy rating. Um,
Yeah.
but looking at the move, it's over, and all he can say is, "I missed it." So he's not saying buy or sell. I wouldn't even take that as a hold from him, but if it wants to retrace, go for about 50% retracement. Yeah, 236 or so. Maybe we'll get back to it, but I don't know that this thing's going to be very tradable until it starts to settle on some levels because it's been quite a
Yeah.
parabolic move,
I mean,
nonetheless.
you'd want it to settle. If I were to buy it, which I wouldn't, I would treat it as kind of a buyable gap up, and I'd use that kind of 252 low, which I mean that's too far away for me. But if
Yeah,
I were trading it, I'd be using that 252 low as a stop. Um, but again,
yeah.
that's too rich for my blood.
It's kind of a hands off for this moment. I mean that The gap
Yeah.
up play was pretty much spent right here. I mean, it hit right to the number and dropped, maybe wicked over a little bit. I'd say that thing's kind of given up the ghost. Definitely due for a retracement. And either, yeah, about 255, 252, about half that move, or even hit the floor at about 236, 237, somewhere in there. It seems about logical. Um, Not a stock I like to trade, but I'll keep an eye on it from here. If it starts to form some more standard chart patterns, we'll start to take some interest in it. Definitely keep it on the radar, but I'm not going to be focused on that. I've got plenty of better things to trade. Moving on, like he was saying, buy on a few things, and one of the ones that kind of threw me for a loop was he went and said Allegiant. He's like, why don't you go buy Booking? So let me pull up Allegiant first. Let's see here. So
What's the symbol?
ALGT. It's just Allegiant Air. I mean, I don't fly Allegiant.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people do if it's cheap travel, but to me, it's like a flying city bus. I mean, they're not great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this looks like a short to me.
Yeah, and he just kind of basically said sell, sell, sell. So I can almost give him an attaboy on that one. Okay, I don't take it as a sell, sell, sell. But he goes in the comment on that. He goes, why don't you go buy Booking? And I'm looking at Booking.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, yep.
I'm looking at Booking like it's this could be a top tick. Let me go to Booking real quick.
Yeah, no, I don't like this up here. I also, I mean, I think the consumer's in a lot worse shape than the numbers show.
Agreed.
So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be buying this up here.
No, me neither. I mean, that thing looks like it's just pretty much wound out. We've been talking about this thing a couple times over. I personally missed this trend, but then I saw this setup for a primary secondary move, and it nailed that target. Did well on that. This one here, I was expecting after this consolidation. I remember last time we talked about it, we were looking at this consolidation, and it certainly made the number. But now I wouldn't be a buyer at this point. And if Cramer's technically saying buy by saying instead of Allegiant, go buy Booking.com. Why don't you?
Well, and quite honestly, those are the worst. I mean, it's one thing for someone to call him up about a stock he's not thinking about, but it's another. I mean, he likes Booking.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if he calls you up about Allegiant and you haven't been watching it and you pull the chart up real quick and say whatever, that's one thing. Booking is one he actually likes.
Definitely, and it's one he's talked about in the past, and it's one he's been chasing for quite a while now. Is the ride over? Maybe looking like it. That's a bit top heavy to me. Not quite double toppy yet. I'll give it a maybe till the end of next week to see if we may just form a consolidation and break out another half move up to like 36.50, but I'm not too confident in that move. I'd love to see it pull back first, give us 31.40 somewhere in that neighborhood before we start to really be interested in it. But this ride's definitely over, I think. Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of spin left on that ball, if you know what I mean. It's gotta come back to the ground first and touch the plate. Another one he was saying, and he's kind of almost pounding the table on, is Intel, and I almost take that as a kiss of death because I love Intel. It was a great trading stock for a while. He said buy, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Definitely made its measured move as well. We kind of picked that off pretty easy. For a long time, I was trading, the mean reversion of this particular trend here. I had a target of 36 on it. Scalped that all out, did very well on it. This consolidation was bigger than I thought, and I guess I could have stayed long and went back to this whole number over here at $46, but then it kind of blasted through it with a gap up, and I'm just like, well, maybe I'll wait for this thing to settle. Again, this is another stock where it's gone parabolic. It would be nice to let it settle a little bit and figure out where it's going to go from here. He's liking this for the AI stuff, obviously. Buying and chasing that dream has been a passion of his, but For now, I almost take this as a kiss of death at this point.
Yeah, no, I don't like this up here either. Not a stock like Intel.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
You look at that, end of October bounce off the 200-day, that's perfect. But, now you're, what's that, 14 points higher. Not my thing.
it's about out of gas at that point, I would think too. And unless this consolidation holds that $46 magic pivot area, it gives us a big old bull flag and a big 2-for-1. Uh, you could maybe stick a really parabolic number up at 58, but I'm going to wait for consolidation first and see where this goes. But otherwise, I think it might be pulling back to 42, maybe even a little lower in the near future. Just kind of keep an eye on it. It's not something I'm going to trade right away, but I'm going to keep it on the radar and just kind of keep watch on it because this thing's been pretty, for Intel, it's been pretty volatile over the past few months, and I think it'll definitely give us some tradability. But for now, consolidate, wait and see.
Yep.
I would say hold on, keep it in the watch list, but don't jump in. Another one he was saying, let's see here. AEP was last week, I thought. Oh no, AEP was this week.
No.
That's right.
Yeah. AEP was a recent call. I know that.
And again, this is another one we looked at a while back, and we found the measured move. It more or less nailed it, but now it's kind of pulling back. So he said the old bye bye bye, and there goes your kiss
Yeah,
of death.
no, I mean, this looks like a great short also. Yeah, I'm a little careful about utilities just because I think they're so now tied to rates and kind of what's you know what well, no, it's all right, it's kind of following TLT down.
It's got a good short target down here around 77.5 or so. I'd say kind of keep an eye on the level where it's at. It's made about half the expected move around 79. So yeah, I mean, so far so good for short. Got the old kiss of death, as people call it.
Yeah.
In the long run, can we see this thing reverse around here? Sure. If it gives us a nice give the half the trend back move down to 77.5, and it starts to cascade into a bull trend, sure, it can go higher from here on the weekly. But would I buy and hold this stock? No, I don't really like utilities either. And we've all seen what the old Widowmaker has done to a lot of people. I mean, if you take a look at UNG, just kind of comparison, natural gas has been threatening to break that consolidation level and give us a short squeeze, and it kind of did the other day, but it didn't really get a lot of pep behind it. Even though it closed a nice hammer over here, it dropped right back down to support. Might even go a little lower to like 540. So you got to wonder, I mean, where's the margin at? If natural gas is dirt cheap, sure, the utilities are going to try and hold their prices high. They don't bring them down much, but consumption overseas is going to be where it's at, and the liquid market's not as potent as they were expecting it to be. Yes, we did get a cold snap, but I don't know it's enough to make this move. So still a widowmaker in my book.
Yep.
And utilities kind of with it. A lot of utilities rely on natural gas and coal and stuff, and then you look at coal and it's kind of the same measure, but we're in a range. So I like BTU for trading coal, but I kind of look at this with a grain of sand too, because it's kind of hanging in the middle of null. And if it gets going into a trend, cool, we could see it, run this whole move up higher. But short term, I'm going to stay away from that as well. That's just not really worth it to me. A little bit too parabolic, if you know what I mean. The cold snap definitely brought some use out of it, but I think it kind of hit the ceiling and pulled back. Wait and see if we get a little consolidation. Maybe we'll get another move out of it. But for now, I'm hands off utilities. Sell was kind of funny. Let's see, there was a couple. Bungie was one of them. BG.
Yeah.
And let me get out to this one. I guess we kind of give him an attaboy on that one, sure.
No, see the sell. If he had caught the kind of double top at 110,
Yeah, that would
I
have been
give
nice.
them an attaboy. But I mean, telling someone to sell it now,
It's a little late.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty
I
much.
actually own this one personally in one of my mean reversion strategies, but
I mean,
it
I might
has.
take some interest in it around $92. You know, it's certainly set up to make a finishing move there, but yeah, I guess we don't have to give him an attaboy for that. I guess we can give him
No, I mean anyone can look at this chart and say sell, sell, sell.
true, very
The,
true.
the the attaboy would be if you call that 110 and say sell, sell, sell.
Right, that would have been great because then it made the full move. Even made a half retracement of that and then gave you a second chance to get short on it. So, yeah, here and here. I don't know, man. Kramer's kind of giving us a couple curveballs here, so we'll see if we get a couple more interesting calls out of him next week, and we'll see if we can find some decent swing setups. But for now, I'll keep an eye on this one. I think I might consider taking a little position in around 92, 92.20 if it hits there and it kind of bounces. Otherwise, it could go a little lower down to like 88, 87. I had 82, but this thing moved. Sorry. Um, okay, not quite an attaboy, but you know we'll give him a
Right.
not even maybe a benefit of a doubt type of thing. Okay.
Yeah, I think just yeah, remains to be seen. Kind of like his he told someone sell, sell, sell Spirit Airlines
True.
like last night. It's like, okay. I mean, it's gone from 15 to 5 in 3 days.
True.
Sort of obvious. Again, you call it at 15:32, I give you an attaboy. You call it at 5:39, it's
Fair enough.
I mean, all right, it has dropped 12% today, so maybe.
Okay. Almost. We'll see if it finishes to move, and then maybe we can give him a half an attaboy or something. And then he said, just say no to China, and this is interesting to me. I
He's been right about China. I mean, it hurts coming out of my mouth, but he's been right on China. I mean, China has just plain sucked.
Yep, I agree with that. I mean, I'm still looking. You know, I was in this short for a little while, and then once he started talking about it, I'm like, I better close my position. I certainly did so this morning, and look, it gave us a little bounce. So, can we continue short on this? I'm gonna wait and see. This has already made its move for me. It's hit my price target. I think it could go lower, yes, but yeah, I think we're gonna wait and see a couple other things that play into this. And one we've been trading over there at the BB. Is an international shipper, and ZIM has been on a tear. We pretty much killed this move, and now we're waiting for a pullback to see if we can consolidate and go higher, or if it gets well, if Cramer puts it in his mouth, we'll certainly sell it. But in the meantime, that almost says sector rotation to me. I'm looking at a few other international shippers, but this is the one I'm looking at for the litmus test, and so far so good. So I mean, in spite of China's woes, we still have some pretty good commerce going on over the oceans. So kind of wait and see if this will give us the signal to go higher. But it's already made its mean reversion of this trend here. Pretty much nailed all the targets we wanted out of it. So we'll hand it over to Cramer and see what he does with it. It wouldn't surprise me to see him talking about this one next week. And then one last one he was saying, and I agree with him on this. I don't like tobacco either, but a chart's going to do what a chart's going to do. It's kind of consolidated here at a support zone around $40. Maybe we get a little reversion out of it to 40, 80, but that's not really worth trading 80 cents on a $40 stock. Come on, there's plenty of better things to do.
And he won't. It's not. He will not, out of conscience, recommend a tobacco stock.
I wouldn't either. I'm long time ago I smoked for a little while, but I quit cold turkey when my first kid was born and haven't looked back. And as for a chart that I would trade, this is not.
Yeah.
Although I kind of look at these rounding tops with maybe it'll give us a quick bounce and maybe give us half a candle back. But like I said, 80 cents on a $40 stock is not worth my time. I'd rather go short Disney. which,
Yep.
by the way, is kind of setting up for a possibility of, well, it's either going to give us up or down here. That flag is pretty much unmistakable, but this
You
is,
know what? That's brilliant, by the way.
yeah,
It's either going to give us up or down.
it's consolidated to a point where I think it'll either give us the move or it won't. And if it eats this trend, we know where the short target's going to be about $85. I've seen these flags look like they're going to break out and give us a bull move and then fail. And looking at their earnings coming up, I think the consensus is still a bit bearish on this. They've had, kind of a miserable couple of quarters here, and they're about to become part of your go woke, go broke ETF, I'm sure. Um,
May very well.
and I'm just like tempted to short this here, but I want to wait for a break. So I'm looking for this range to break and maybe give us a target down around $80. 79 would be a good base, but would I trade it yet? I'm going to wait and see. These flags have that 60-40 rule applied to them automatically with me, and it's got the 60% chance of follow through for a bull move. Maybe hit about 98, 98.50 at most, but I'm thinking more like it's going to give us the 40% fail factor and give us at least a half a move back. But wait and see what this earnings does. I never like to trade the earnings unless I'm an option seller. Maybe I'll sell some credit spreads. Maybe I'll sell a condo or something on it. But other than that, I'm not touching it with equity. I'm going to go for more or less a synthetic options position. And that's where I stand on it. I'm going to kind of wait and see what it gives us for earnings, more or less. But I could trade it a little bit if it gets nice and volatile right up to it. Get that implied volatility spike on the options chain. Maybe I'll sell some credit spreads.
Yeah, I typically don't trade this one. I do own it. And again, one of my stock mean reversion strategies, and we've got a nice profit cushion going into earnings. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean it's got potential for a big move, but yeah, we'll definitely wait and see what the earnings gives us. However, I have been known to scalp some of those earnings plays right in the call and just be in and out in seconds sometimes. I used to love doing that with Amazon when it was trading around 3,000. Go and when my account wasn't very big, I'd go and scalp a few shares long or short on Amazon and just kill it in like 5 minutes, make a few $100 and go buy a steak dinner.
Yeah.
But as far as Disney goes, I think it's going to give us some volatility on earnings for sure, to say the least. But I'm not so sure it's going to be bullish for any more of this. We'll see. It's kind of right in that zone where it could very well go into the go woke, go broke. Any other mentions in that sector for your ETF consideration?
Not nothing that jumps out. We're still probably now April for launch, so I have not. We've had a lot of other stuff on our plate, so I haven't really kept up. I mean, people are talking about something Apple did as far as pronouns, but to me, I think that's
Yeah.
that's a nothing burger. So nothing big that jumps out at me. No.
Well, there's still that never-ending rumor that Apple's interested in buying Disney, and that keeps going around and around. So maybe,
Yeah. So now that could make things interesting. What happens when a somewhat woke company buys a very woke company? What do they become?
I'm not sure I want to meet that baby. you know,
No.
it's never going to be good when you start mixing politics with business. And sad to say, there's plenty of that going on in all the lobbyists we have to deal with, but we don't talk about that here. We just trade the chart, man.
You got it.
That's the way to go. A couple other mentions. I know Cramer was mentioned CFLT, and I haven't really looked at this yet, but it kind of got a little interest out of me when I looked at it this morning, and I kind of made a measured move box here. It's almost given half that back. Can it give us a little bit more and maybe bounce here? I don't know. This thing's kind of been beat to death for a long time.
It's sitting right on the 50-day here. I mean, if it breaks to the downside, you've got, I mean, you've got lookout below, but it's got that gap fill too at 28 that looks really enticing, which is right on the 200-day moving average. So, I mean, this could be an interesting one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on it for sure. It definitely isn't something I had looked at recently, but now I'm kind of taking interest in at least keeping it on the radar, and I've got a pretty good idea that this thing's going to give us half back and then start to form a trend, whether it's bullish or bearish, I don't know yet, but yeah, gap fill would be great on this thing. I mean, trade it from like 20, 20 and a half up to about 28, 29. That'd be glorious. I'd love to swing that. Looking left though, man, that's one heck of a drop back. So can it get crazy? Well, remember if you looked at Snapchat when I was talking about it, and I was pounding the table about Snapchat for a while, and I took my profit, I'm done with it, but it kind of had the same setup. Big old drop, long consolidation, and eventually it broke out. Gave more or less a short squeeze. Some ad revenue fell into it out of X and into Snapchat, but it's kind of settled now. Same kind of maneuver. In fact, I'm going to pull up Snap to look at, just for comparison. Long consolidation. Eventually it broke out, gave us a little short squeeze, and still consolidating. Maybe it will finish this candle, maybe it won't. But compare that to, the CFLT there, yeah, kind of the same. Maybe it'll give us the move, maybe not. And certainly with Snapchat, it did give us, the move here was primary, gave us a secondary back down, hit the key support and bounce. That's kind of the setup I like to look for. I like to do a little bottom fishing on stuff like that, and this is kind of one that I might consider later on. So certainly keep an eye on it. It's looking interesting. It's a $20 stock. It's got some volatility to it, and that's how we make money. We make money with volatility. So definitely don't ignore it. Another old Jim Cramer doll or dog, whichever you want to call it, Affirm. He mentioned that. And I got more or less a hold vibe out of him on that one, but maybe you got some insight on that. It's kind of done the same thing Snap has done in my consideration. It's broken, the key resistance, gave us the short squeeze we wanted, ate up the previous candle. Didn't quite go for the full weekly candle over here, but dang, it got close. And now it's consolidated. It's kind of pulled back, and Cramer mentioned it. Is it a kiss of death or not? Well, the key pivot's going to be right here around 39.50-ish, and maybe it'll give us the go.
37.41 is the 50-day.
Yeah,
I'd be watching that as well.
yeah, definitely. I like the idea of. Pardon me, my throat's getting a little dry. You know what? I hit the spot. Still drinking coffee this morning. It's my third cup. I don't drink a lot of coffee. I'm kind of looking at. Whoops, I goofed it up. Let me drag this over. Sorry if I'm fumbling with my charting all of a sudden.
It's all right.
Jeez. Okay, here we go. So I've got the primary move here. It's given us more or less half of a secondary move to the downside. And yeah, if it hits that 50 period, we could certainly see a bounce. But I keep in mind that that pivot goes right through the middle of this box. We hit half a move down already and kind of gave it the old bounce. Can it maintain some momentum here? Maybe. A lot of people will look at this like a bear flag, and this is where a lot of institutions love to pick things up. So just kind of keep an eye on that. If it holds this pivot level, we could see it revert back into the 45, 90, maybe even hit the $50 mark later on next week. But definitely be very aware of the key support area here. And can it go lower? It sure can. It can hit as low as 35 and some change. But it's one that's on my radar. I might give it another swing, but for the most part, this parabolic trend from that short squeeze that was caused by all that consolidation, it's kind of ran out of gas up here, so maybe it'll give us that move back. I don't know if I even want to sell options on this just yet, but it's one of those ones where I have before and it did very well, and now I'm just kind of out of the position, but I'll see if there's something interesting in this in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. I think that's about it for the Cramer mentions this week. As far as the lightning round stuff goes, I'm not even looking at the top 10 things to watch list anymore because it's just a bunch of gobbledygook to me. I don't really, he'll say something about the Fed or something about this speech or that speech or whatever, and then it kind of goes into Mag 7 a little bit and talks about some metrics in the economy and whatnot, but he doesn't really make a lot of sense out of it in a way that's meaningful. So I've kind of gotten away from that top 10 things to watch in the market
Yeah,
list. And
I mean, I think Mad Money and his tweets or where the alpha is. I think one thing we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about is Bitcoin.
yes,
And but one real important point. So he came out and he said a top in Bitcoin. But what he also said is that he's getting that from Larry Williams.
right.
And again, I don't know whether we've talked about Larry Williams before. I think we have. But, for people who don't know who Larry Williams is a guy that you don't often want to be on the opposite side of.
Oh, for sure.
So, if Larry Williams is saying a top in crypto, then I'm going to be wary. Jim on his own has been awful on crypto. Interestingly, he's been right on this call, but I would suggest that that's Larry who's been right, and and Jim has been piggybacking off of Larry's
Right.
top in crypto.
Follow the leader type of stuff. Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So whenever, and he'll do that too on Mad Money. He'll say, "Hey, I've got this chart, and Larry Williams thinks the Nasdaq is going down." I wouldn't fight that stuff. Again, I would not fight Larry Williams. You're not going to win a lot of those.
Oh, for sure. And I can see a measured move setup plain as day. It's looking like we'll hit 38 again. But that was quite a ride on the upswing once everything kind of settled with the ETFs that are coming about. And then I know that there's a few new registrants out there too, and kind of wonder if this is going to give us the trend that we're looking for. Maybe get back to those previous highs again, but we've already made the mean reversion of that big old bear trend to the number, and we even wicked out of it a little bit. So, can it become stable at this point? You know, I think that if you look back and comparatively, like when SPY was just barely moving every day, and you could take some pretty killer option swings on it anyway, but comparatively to futures that they're supposed to track, everything kind of stabilized once more and more ETFs kind of fell into the mix of it. Can this end up actually being a viable currency? Because that's the real question here. With a volatile value swing like that, you wouldn't want to hold it as a currency and buy and sell things with it, because I mean you never know if it loses half its value overnight. But
Yeah, so I do think the spot ETFs are a game changer. It looks like a short at the moment. Whether it's a long-term short or not, I'd be very careful with that. I don't know if you saw, I think we did this when you were out. We actually filed for 2x long short on the spot. So we will see. It hasn't been rejected yet, so that's a good thing.
heck yeah, I'd love to see that get approved. That would be stuff I would definitely be interested in. Anytime you say 2x or 3x, that's where I look for options leverage, and I start to, my wheels start to turn, and the cartoons where
We'll look to list options day one.
there you go. And that's where, like, you've seen the cartoons where the character blinks and dollar signs are in place of their eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's what I do when I hear like leveraged ETF and optionable, and with especially if it's got liquidity. TQQQ has still been one of my favorites as far as selling options goes, but get some spot.
And we're trying to get some liquidity in the T-Rex, and we just launched. Yeah, we launched 4 more levered and inverse while you're away too.
Dang, man, you've been busy. That's good stuff. I mean, I love that kind of liquidity when things fall into place, and you actually get that options volume where the bid ask is nice and tight. You got lots of open interest on it and stuff like that. It just makes the income process that much easier. And it also, I mean, if the market makers are good on it, it's a good cash flow system for them too. I mean, it's kind of making things work. As far as extra trading power and that for the people who day trade and swing trade options contracts, Leverage has been kind of taboo. Most people kind of either they're all in on it or they're not in on it or they avoid it. So as far as options income goes, you got to have that liquidity. Well, um, you get enough people interested in day trading it, and that's where you get a lot of that volatility from. Swing traders are going to kind of be reluctant on that stuff unless they're options income strategists such as myself. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that all shakes out in the long run. And every day we get more and more market participation. There's more and more people getting into managing their own portfolios and stuff, and that's kind of why we're here to help people with that. But in
Yep.
the long run, do you see like some of the leveraged ETFs sustaining value over the long time, or is it something where it's just the same MO where you kind of just do the
I mean,
income strategy
it's
on it?
all, yeah, I mean, it's all going to depend on the glide path of returns.
Right.
That's where it gets weird is, I mean, when you're running a levered and inverse, you are, rebalancing on a daily basis. So it's, all about the glide path of returns. There's just no way to know. So yeah, you can buy a levered ETF and hold on to it. I mean, it's not going to go to zero unless it's one of the VIX ones. But
Right.
yeah, what you get over time, you really don't know.
And it's
I was talking to someone the other day. It was like, well, why don't I just buy, I'm bullish on the market long term. Why don't I just buy a 2x SPY? Like, you can, but you have no guarantee you're going to end up with 2x SPY over time. I
right.
mean, you could be 1x. I mean, if the market's up, you're going to be up, but I can't tell you how much.
Right. And that's I love leverage ETFs because of the income potential, but it is kind of an unknown of whether or not it's going to maintain a similar curve to the general market that it's in. So it's always been an interesting point. I've always kind of touched on it, but I've never like had an outright intelligible conversation about what the long term effect of those or long term outlook of those would even be. And that kind of
Yeah.
puts it in perspective. You just don't know with leverage. One I discovered fairly recently, and I'm taking some interest in it, is something that kind of takes after my own portfolio, SQY. It's essentially an options income ETF, and it's kind of a new one. It's kind of fallen right back to the mean, so it's starting to interest me around 19-20 bucks, and it does what I do with my portfolio. It's based on options income, and I look at this and it's like, well, that doesn't perform the same as my portfolio in the short term. I'm like usually running this kind of thing, but I actively manage mine very very regularly, like sometimes up to the 5 minute level as far as options income goes. But I look at the dividend on this thing and it's like, holy smokes, there's going to be some yield hunters chasing this thing. You know,
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see what this ends up doing, but it's also optionable, so I can maybe turn this into an income strategy on that. And I remember a while back I was kind of like kicking that idea over to you. I was like, would it be really cool to launch an options income ETF and base it on Jim Cramer's picks, not necessarily long or short, but the fact that he brings alpha to it. Um, would that be something that you guys would do in the future, or just kind of sticking to the leverage and running with Jim Cramer's stuff and a
No, I mean,
lot of other stuff?
yeah, I mean, we are open to any good ideas. I don't stick to anything except for good ideas.
There you go.
And I got people bringing me ideas all the time. I mean, I'm going back and forth with a guy today on email who thinks he's come up with the best idea since sliced bread, and he hasn't.
There's always some of those, and heck, I've even done something like that. One time I was looking at kind of sustaining income on some of the leverage ETFs in the past, but then they didn't have the liquidity that they have now. So back then it was one of those ideas where you think it's great, and then you start doing the long term research on it, and you're like, okay, maybe this wasn't so great. But now it's kind of fallen in. So sometimes even hearing those ideas early on and then later on, maybe they do take shape depending on how the market swings. It kind of works out. But
Yeah, and in the ETF marketplace is all over income.
yeah,
Covered calls is like the hottest thing out there.
yeah,
And, and these covered call ETFs are dumb strategies. If you look at the covered call ETF on Tesla, for example, including the income, last year you had half the return of Tesla.
right.
So it's kind of, why bother?
Exactly
Or,
that.
a covered call ETF launched on ARK when ARK was at the lows. So, all right, great. I'm getting income on the calls, but ARK is at the lows. I'm giving up most of my upside. It makes no sense.
Right.
But an intelligent income generation strategy, that's always interesting. I run a zero DTE put strategy in my personal account, which I'd love to do as an ETF. A, it's complicated and I wouldn't know how to explain it. And B, the guy who taught it to me made me sign an NDA. So even if I could figure out how to explain it, I'm
Right.
not allowed to. So, but that's the type of thing that would very much interest me, from an income generation standpoint, because we can make income and not give up upside.
Right. And there, there's a like comparison is the guy who runs the Iron Fly on the SPX. It was pretty much taboo to talk about it for a long time, and then all of a sudden he's out public with it. It was like a big secret. And kind of the same with me. I look at things. I don't just sell calls. I sell calls and puts. So I'm wheeling in stuff where it's mostly equities that I'm looking to acquire, stuff I'm willing to own, stuff I'm willing to double my position size on with selling cash covered puts if I get assigned. And at the same time, I want that top side hedge to kind of weigh against cost basis. So I'm more or less tracking with the price no matter what it's doing. And in most cases, over time, the income offsets the total cost of the equity that I'm in anyway. So that's kind of what I'm getting at is long before SQI came to be, I was very interested in something that would follow that strategy. So options income ETFs obviously excite me. So it's just
One day we'll figure out the perfect formula, something that A is going to be interesting to people out there and B doesn't suck.
agreed. Something that actually performs, at least as good as SPY or even better than SPY would be ideal, and that's what everybody's
Or
kind of
just
benchmark is.
that doesn't have an obvious that's stupid when you look at it.
Right,
Like, to me, just selling covered calls on volatile stocks blindly means, all right, I retain most of my downside and give up a bunch of my upside in return for some income. But, you're talking about the type of stocks that can double in a year. To me, that just doesn't
right.
make a lot of sense.
It would at that point it would make more sense to buy and hold the equity, and that's the whole point. So
Or, cash covered puts, that type of thing. You're not giving up your upside there. There are all sorts of different ways to slice it, or just be dynamic on selling the calls, but then that's too much to explain, and the income's going to be lower. So
right.
there's an answer. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, there was one thing that I kind of I pride myself on. I haven't perfected it yet, but I kind of pride myself on running synthetic long neutral positions. It's like the poor man's covered call, but with calls and puts. And the long position is a leap or more out, and the short position selling the front weeks or front months or whatever I have. But the idea is to generate income on a synthetic neutral position where win or lose, I don't care what the equity is doing. I'm interested in the options income. Um, so far it's been sustainable. I've been able to make consistent gains out of it, but again, it's one of those things where it does have its limits of what it can do. It definitely caps the upside, it caps the bottom side at the same time, and kind of puts you in limbo. But a strategy I have run on a couple of the larger equities, like on Tesla a while back and on Amazon more recently, is I went so far as to sell a deep in the money leap put credit spread, and I'll run them like just $5 wide, sell them for $4.98 on an earnings implied volatility spike, to where I'm literally risking 2 cents and a $5 wide per spread. And then if I take assignment on a short leg, I'll take the assignment, sell covered calls on that, and then still have a deep in the money put as leverage to neutralize the equity. That's complicated as hell, but it worked out great.
Yeah.
And in the short run, it takes a lot of outlay to make that happen, but in the long run, it was very stable and very sustainable. So I haven't run anything beyond a few months with something like that, but perhaps something with a synthetic neutral position of some combination would be something to focus on for sustainability and a very good performing ETF. So,
Yep.
going to take somebody with some knowledge, know how, or some options, know how to do that, and that's the hard part, is finding people who haven't retired, who have been so up on options that they're able to do stuff like that. I know a lot of the old floor traders have gone into like bigger companies and stuff to do different things with, and some of them I've talked to, when I mention synthetics, their eyes get wide, like, how do you know about synthetics? You haven't been around that long. I do a lot of reading, so yeah, it's kind of it's kind of a path of discovery as far as finding that magic formula and finding what works well, and the stuff you do in your personal portfolio can't always be done in an exchange traded fund like that. So it's
Right.
going to be an interesting future nonetheless. But I'm glad we got the chance to kind of talk about that a little bit and see what the ups and downs are on something like that. Anyway, it's been a heck of a little bit of a up and down week, and I think we're looking at just kind of sustaining whether or not we're going to rally or not through this whole mess. But I've noticed that on SPY we've got that diamond pattern that's just kind of notorious for predicting some serious volatility coming soon. And I'm thinking by the end of the month here, we're going to have an answer on a very rapid trend. Whether it eats this or continues this, it's hard to say. Just real quick on the market outlet, and then we'll call it a day. But what do you think about the general market as far as, are we going to remain in a bullish rally into February, or we're going to probably eat some of that vertical move back a little bit and maybe do some pullback?
So yeah, I talked about this in my newsletter this morning, actually. Um, my sense coming into the year was you were going to have an issue with the market's thoughts on how many times the Fed was going to cut and how soon they were going to start versus what the Fed was saying. I
Right.
thought that was going to be pushed out a couple of months, and that, the bullish sentiment from last year would carry over. Now I think I was wrong. I think that that's happening, as we speak. I don't think the Bulls are ready to give up, but I don't really see us going a whole heck of anywhere at the moment until until we get some more clarity, on there. So I think the opportunities are going to be short term in nature. I think you buy the Magnificent Seven on dips. I don't think you buy them and hold them and expect you're going to get last year's returns. But market structure is set up in a way that it's going to be very hard for those stocks to really, really go down. You can argue, well, they're overvalued, but yes, so much money is going into the S&P and the NASDAQ, and almost half of it goes into Magnificent Seven. So, I would definitely be buying those on dips. I'm watching commodities. I thought commodities would be an area. They have not been. I'm not willing to give up on that less than 3 weeks into the year, but so far no good there. But yeah, I don't see us going a whole heck of a lot of places unless something comes out that gives the guys thinking that we're going to get a lot of cuts this year, some sort of fodder for that.
Agreed. I think in the short term, it's going to be yes. There's going to be some volatility, and keep your trades in the short term focus. And before long, I think we're going to have some sort of outcome from this because every time I've seen this diamond pattern form, I mean, usually it precedes volatility, and either you get a parabolic uptrend or a parabolic downtrend out of it. So the chart agrees.
And as we speak, here's a really ugly 5-minute candle.
Yeah, I was just kind of zooming in on that. That is a whole bunch of selling all of a sudden, but
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Magnificent Seven as well. They're all, except for Tesla, which is already down. They're everybody's got an ugly 5-minute candle here.
funny you should mention Tesla. If you got it, I mean, I know you got a call coming up pretty soon, but Tesla has been kind of something I'm looking at a little more in depth on. I rarely dig into fundamentals, but I'm starting to dig into Tesla a bit, and I might even put a video out tomorrow digging into this. But there's some things behind the scenes that are kind of starting to fall out of the woodwork, so to speak, on Tesla, and many outside things that are all in alignment for things to happen. Certainly, it got this nice bearish move, and I still have my magic number at 207. It's not on this particular account, but it's in my other account for the data. 207 was where I would be looking to be a buyer, but it's like this has been down so sharply in this mess, and this is a descending trend. Do you think Elon's going to give us another hat trick? It's very possible. And last year I nailed that 100% move like no other. It was the easiest thing I have ever traded, and it was a very, very successful and profitable trade. But now we've got this giant consolidation flag, and it's either going to hit or miss. The 60-40 rule applies to these too. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think Tesla's a different animal. If Tesla was run by Joe Smith, then I would be very, very careful, with the stock. I mean, the cross currents you're seeing in the EV market right now and Tesla in specific, but it's not run by Joe Smith. It's run by Elon Musk, who, has become a meme in his own right. So, would I be betting against Tesla stock any more than short term? I wouldn't. Um, you see on Twitter, it's funny, you've got the perma bulls and the perma bears always fighting each other. I
Oh yeah,
mean, that's what I love, having a 2x long and a 2x short. I mean, to me, Tesla's a trading vehicle.
yeah,
Never be a perma bull, never be a perma bear. I mean, right now, I am somewhat bullish just from the standpoint of I think you buy Magnificent Seven on dips, and and I put Tesla in that category. So, it from a relative strength standpoint, it's been the weakest. So it's the one I want to own.
absolutely. I agree with you on that one. And old Uncle Elon, man, he's been a bit of a maverick, and I know that a lot of people were putting the chips down on Tesla back here, where it was hovering around that $100 mark, and I had a difference of opinion, and I did very well with that, but everybody and their mother was just taking a crap on it, and you can see that in the chart too, but they didn't change their minds until well after this move. And it was just, I call it the Elon hat trick. He had everybody thinking one thing and the other thing happened. So now we've got kind of more of the same. Some of the investors were spooked on him saying that he wants to have a little bit more stake in the company to have some more control.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are put off by that. But the stuff in the background is where this gets interesting, and you start looking into the robot thing, you start looking into AI kind of taking into it, and you start looking at the other domestic auto manufacturers, and you kind of scratch your head and go, I wonder what this is going to look like in a month. And that's
And
me.
and don't sleep on the probable enemies he has made
Yes,
by going political and being on the opposite side of most of the other billionaires out there.
exactly. And that's what makes this chart so interesting to trade. It makes that alone makes this thing so volatile that it just makes money. It's a trader's chart, and I love trading Tesla. But at this point, I'm kind of curious: can it double again in a year? And that's where I'm looking at that Elon hat trick quote that I just stated.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder. It's got that potential. We've certainly seen it before. This isn't anything new. And my gosh, you look at the monthly chart and it just kind of spells out that return for mean on this whole high to low is right up in here around the $300 mark. So things could get interesting very rapidly in Tesla. And I think
Things always get interesting in Tesla. Again, why I love having products on Tesla.
absolutely. And, it's just I'm getting excited. I think there's going to be some big moves, whether it's up or down. I don't know, but I think there's some sort of hat trick in the mix here, and it's going to be expensive for some and very lucrative for others. Let's just say that.
Yep.
Right on. Well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. We've had a great week, great show. I might even mention that it might interest us to maybe get some sponsorship behind this and start talking about some people. So if you're interested in maybe getting a conversation going about that sort of thing, I don't know how to do it. I'm going to have to probably find someone who does. But, if you're interested in helping us out and supporting the show, let us know in the comments. Reach out. We'll definitely respond and say something. But again, thanks for joining us and thanks for being here to support us in kind. And we'll see you again next week, same time. Thanks again.